On December 17th, 2009, the film world lost an underdog icon. Screenwriter and occasional director Dan O'Bannon succumbed to Crohn's disease, which had gone undiagnosed for 30 years. It's unclear how much his chronic abdominal pain contributed to his dark, amoral, and gleefully sadistic themes, to say nothing of his demeanor, but it is safe to say it inspired this. O'Bannon was a tragic guy whose pain spilled into, for better or worse, his creative and personal lives. I think we can safely agree that Alien is one of the most influential, iconic horror movies of all time. Screenplay courtesy of Dan O'Bannon. He was also involved in the early stages of production, but Hollywood writers are expected to be seen and not heard. O'Bannon ordered people around, disagreed with the pace Scott was taking to the material, to the point of once screaming "too slow" while watching dailies, and hated the alterations made to his script by Walter Hill and David Giler. After a dramatic scene involving a borrowed typewriter, he was thrown off set, and that's O'Bannon in a nutshell. Aggressive, contrarian, unwilling to compromise, he spent his whole career bemoaning what he saw as non-stop meddling with his work. Think you maybe picked the wrong industry there, Dan. In 1985, 2 sci-fi horror films he scripted were released, and one was his directorial debut. Return of the Living Dead was originally in the hands of Tobe Hooper, still riding the success of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and trying to survive the fallout surrounding Poltergeist. In brief, there's always been some argument over how much creative control he had versus Steven Spielberg. Hooper gave Return of the Dead up to O'Bannon because he was directing Lifeforce, the other O'Bannon screenplay, adapted from The Space Vampires by Colin Wilson. Certainly Return of the Living Dead is the more lasting movie. O'Bannon somehow delivered a sequel to Night of the Living Dead that has earned almost as much goodwill and longevity as Romero's own. But analytically, Lifeforce is more interesting. I think the interplay of the creative leads, Dan and Toby, get to some key points about who O'Bannon made himself over the course of his career. So, enough dawdling. I know you're just here to see how much Mathilda May footage I'm using. Let's see how much Lifeforce we can suck. Lifeforce concerns the investigation of a derelict spacecraft by a group of astronauts and the resulting chaos that ensues when they bring alien life forms back with them. Deja vu. The backbone of the story follows Colonel Carlson, the last survivor of the mission, and Colonel Kane, an SAS agent, as they try and track down an escaped alien, Mathilda May, in a revealing performance as a psychic vampire. There's a universal obligation to mention Mathilda May and nudity every time anyone says Lifeforce. In tracking her down, they run through a rogues gallery of British character actors. Frank Finlay, Michael Gothard, Aubrey Morris, Patrick! Hey, Mr. Stewart! Mr. Stewart! Remember this! In a clear attempt to steamroll Ridley Scott, Tobe Hooper opens with a set piece designed to out-sexualize Alien, the exploration of a 150-mile-long derelict dong ship. Actually, it was apparently modeled on an artichoke. Yeah, 150 miles long, it'd be pretty easy to you know what, never mind. But where Ridley Scott employed pitch-perfect patience and letting the anticipation build, Hooper's disinterested efficiency seems, to stretch a metaphor, disappointingly premature. This whole opening could have been scrapped, but instead it zipped through, which effectively marginalizes what should have been grand and epic spectacle. And remember, O'Bannon hated the slow pace that Scott took on Alien, so you have to wonder if he would have preferred this. In the ship's urethra, the crew finds the desiccated bodies of large bat-like creatures and then 3 nude humanoid bodies in crystalline cases, which are brought back on the shuttle.
I've been in space for 6 months, and she looks perfect to me.
For science. The story pace gets even more heated. In a 1-2 punch, NASA identifies the returning shuttle as being off course and sends up a rescue party immediately. They find that a fire has decimated the interior and the escape pod is jettisoned, but the 3 bodies are unharmed, so they're brought back.
Sumner, I think there's something you ought to see in the tug bay.
For science. Unsurprisingly, the female body wakes up on the operating table and proceeds to just go crazy on the attendant. Worth it! Voila la titular Lifeforce. The alien makes short work of lackluster base security and then... Hey, there's a door. There's a door right up. Fine. Her escape prompts calling in SAS agent Kane to retrieve her. The 2 male bodies wake up in time to be immediately destroyed, and the body of one of the girl's victims wakes up on the autopsy table. Oh, go for it, man. He's totally into you. Stealing Lifeforce from the doctor restores him physically, if not mentally. By trapping him in isolation, they discover that victims need to feed every 2 hours or they go poof. Another victim is found in a park, but the girl's trail is thinning.
Now she has clothes.
Mistake, Mr. Hooper. Big mistake. Fortunately, the escape pod from the shuttle has just crash-landed. Colonel Carlson is rescued and proceeds to tell the story of what happened on the way back to Earth. Remember how the whole opening seemed rushed and they already have a scene of flashback here? How much better would it have been to have the movie start with them investigating the burnt-out shuttle and finding 3 mysteriously perfect bodies, letting the audience try to work out the mystery simultaneously with the characters until a surprise return of an escape pod fills in the terrifying blanks? Carlson explains what we can already infer. On their way back to Earth, the crew started to go insane, and Carlson was the last one left. He lit a fire and escaped, hoping to keep their cargo from reaching Earth. Fortunately for Kane, Carlson has a convenient psychic connection with the alien girl, and under hypnosis, he identifies her location. Less comforting is the suggestion that she and her exploded male cohorts can jump their consciousnesses from body to body. Oh, and there's a 150-mile-long dong headed their way, with plans to, at best, mortify every grandmother on Earth. Their hunt leads them to an asylum.
For the criminally insane.
And once there, Patrick! They talk to a woman who played host to the female alien. In the movie's most bizarre, incongruous scene, Carlson engages in some shocking, and it seems unnecessary, negotiation tactics.
It's gone from her. It's in another body now.
How do you know that?
I can see it in her mind. She's resisting. I'm gonna have to force her to tell me. Despite appearances, this woman is a masochist. An extreme masochist. She wants me to force the name out of her. She wants me to hurt her. I can see the images in her mind. Do you want to stay? Otherwise, wait outside!
Not at all. I am a natural voyeur.
This in turn leads them to Dr. Armstrong, who the alien is hidden in. He is sedated and oh, I'm gonna do it again. The girl starts speaking through him.
I am the feminine in your mind, Carlson.
I like how it's Stewart when he says that. Enticing Carlson with a supernatural attraction that's never really explained. Admit it, you've had this fantasy. They sedate Armstrong again and bring him on a helicopter back to London when, holy shit. 1 second, there is a conspicuous absence here. Well, the girl's soul is gone, and that's just the start of their problems. See, during their time at the asylum, London has become Return of the Living fucked. Citywide crazed vampiric victims are viciously in search of life force and infecting the populace. The explosions I can't really explain. The harvested life force is being channeled to the orbiting alien ship, but thanks to Carlson's convenient psychic link, he knows it has to go through the girl first, and better yet, he can pinpoint her location. He's off to save the world. Kane tracks Carlson to a cathedral guarded by one of the male vampires, who fulfills a movie-long tease by finally turning into one of the dong ship bat things, for all of 5 seconds. Kane kills it and enters the church, finding Carlson... Was this your plan? Kane throws down a stabbing implement, and Carlson, in a last gasp of overt metaphor, penetrates himself in the alien, cutting the flow of life force to the ship, which heads off into space abruptly. A lot of people consider life force criminally underrated. I'm not one of them, but there are some things to like. It has novel concepts and a great sci-fi classic horror mashup. It portrays an alien invasion in a hopeless, indifferent way that I think is missing from a lot of modern takes. The main characters are helplessly pushing against an unstoppable tide, barely able to fathom what they're dealing with. The feeling of powerlessness is palpable and effective. What would have felt narratively rambling in another situation reads as poignantly desperate. But beyond that, the movie highlights the failings of both its writer and director. Tobe Hooper seems unable to rein in the scope of the story. He doesn't know what to do with his epic space scenes, and they seem rushed and untidy, not at all helped by the poor visual effects. Once into the meat of the story, he almost always relies on a distortingly wide-angle lens to capture all the action. Check out the ballooning at the edges of the frame, wide shots, medium shots, close-ups. For a movie concerned with the intimacy of psychic vampirism, the camera work is almost absurdly distant. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was vitalized with verite, but the tactic doesn't work with a space vampire story. Watch the lazy handling of a hypnosis scene, a veritable cornucopia of potential visual flourish.
I feel very tired, very sleepy. She seems to speak to me in my dreams.
Dan O'Bannon, meanwhile, has always felt to me like a big ideas man. He has great broad strokes of imagination, but falters when it comes down to specifics, and characters have never been his forte. Alien is populated by interchangeable victims. Remember, in O'Bannon's version, there was no company, no android, no women. Return of the Living Dead and Blue Thunder did a better job, but no one really had an arc, just a fixed position. They tend to be vessels through which stories can be told instead of the stories themselves, which is perfectly fine for a certain kind of movie. But Lifeforce seems so character-focused that it's much more noticeable. Carlson is entirely defined through his obsession with the vampire girl, which is exactly one more character trait than Kane gets. The supporting cast are wooden mannequins positioned into tableaus by the script and then the lackluster direction. And the lines O'Bannon puts in people's mouths are pretty absurd, especially considering how dryly and flatly they're made to talk about how vampires must have been aliens who visited Earth long ago.
I think that girl, creature, drained energy, life force partially from Bukowski and totally from the god.
A vampire?
It could be described that way, yes. I mean, in a sense, we're all vampires. We drain energy from other life forms. The difference is 1 degree. That girl was no girl. She's totally alien to this planet and our life form, and totally dangerous.
One of the things Walter Hill changed about the Alien script was to remove the more technical and scientific dialogue and dumb it down. And one of the things people loved about Alien is the industrial view of the future with a starship crew that talks and acts like oil rig workers. So the keystone is still missing from this matchup, and here it is, having hopefully convinced you that Lifeforce was a mutually assured destruction of script and direction. As far as I can tell, Hooper didn't have much to say about O'Bannon, but you can bet O'Bannon had something to say about Hooper, comparing his helming of Lifeforce to getting Bozo the Clown to direct. And why I think this typifies O'Bannon isn't just because he was foisting the blame for his bad screenplay on someone else, it's because to me that someone else was a total kindred spirit. O'Bannon is the guy who wrote Alien. Hooper is the guy who directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Both were instrumental films in the proliferation of the new horror in the 70s, and neither man has ever really lived up to those initial movies. After the well-earned success of Return of the Living Dead, O'Bannon cemented his reputation with the template for the thinking man's action movie, Total Recall. But nothing he did compared to the influence and longevity of Alien. I mean, how could it? It's like the Beatles. Even if something did come out which objectively topped it, no one would ever admit it. Hooper, meanwhile, made Salem's Lot and Poltergeist, and of course we could go on and on about that. And then did a lot of TV with some occasional straight-to-video work, but he's still bankable on name recognition from one movie in the 70s, just like Dan O'Bannon is still from the writer of Alien to a lot of people. But while Hooper seems to be a pleasant, amiable man, O'Bannon, right up until the end, took the role of frustrated genius. He was never given enough credit, someone was always screwing him over. The guy's life wasn't an easy road, even setting aside the chronic pain. He was tossed overboard, in his opinion, by John Carpenter after Dark Star, marginalized in Alien, had his work shit on in Lifeforce and Invaders from Mars, both by Bozo the Clown. In a career spanning 20 years, there's only 3 things he considers real successes: Alien, Return of the Living Dead, and Total Recall. And in 2 of those cases, he still had big problems. Hooper, meanwhile, had even less follow-up to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but he consistently found work and never adopted that snide attitude about any of it. He still fondly remembers the 3 films he made for Canon, Lifeforce included, that sent his career into a nosedive. With controversy around things like Poltergeist and now Gin, it's arguable he has as much reason as O'Bannon to turn sour, but he never did. Now, there should of course not be any minimum requirement for icon status. If you contribute in a large capacity creatively to Alien, that's it. I'm not arguing that O'Bannon's contribution to film wasn't enormous, but I do think that his early successes colored both his reputation and attitude unrealistically. And he seems like a prick sometimes. He has the attitude of an underappreciated genius, but I'm gonna say it, he doesn't deserve it. His contributions don't give him the right to shit on other people, summed up in Lifeforce. He was admonishing the poor treatment of his own terrible work. What's especially strange is that O'Bannon's strategy worked. Hooper, the nice guy, is often called a hack who couldn't live up to his one lucky break, but O'Bannon's attitude, among other things, was convincing. He decided he was underappreciated and unfairly marginalized, and then adjusted his attitude to push his own importance. Mind, he never said flat out that he was God's gift to screenwriters or anything, but he said flippantly insulting things about a lot of people, the kind that should be backed up. People love him because they buy it, and because appearing to cut through the bullshit is a commodity for Hollywood types. Conceptually, Alien gave us a whole new iconography of horror, but even at the time, the script was panned by critics who praised its execution. O'Bannon had the frank and gruesome nihilism that was perfect for the new horror. He had an ugly interpersonal past, intense internal pain, and the focus and scope of imagination to translate them both into something awe-inspiring. But it was a Faustian bargain. The extremity of existence that allowed him to produce the ideas that now outlive him left him a frustrated, bitter, and cold man. Unsung genius to some, miserable grump to others. I guess it's down to how you say it. He was the guy who wrote Alien. He was the guy who wrote Alien!